The other day, I was out for a walk, and the little froggy leapt up from a lily pad and spoke to me. He asked for one simple thing: a sick wallpaper. So, of course, as a friend to all creatures, I granted this one wish. First, I'm going to use this sketch I made in Procreate as reference. I used Nomad Sculpt to model the head. He's basically made up of three different spheres. The eyes are made up of a single sphere with a mirror modifier on them. Then let's export him as an OBJ so that I can import it to Blender. Let's get this guy in here. So we're gonna import him by going to File, Import, and select wavefront.obj. You can see my inputs at the bottom left for reference, and on any hotkeys I'm pressing. Okay, now here's a little knowledge time. Frog 101, the boy is smooth. Select all the assets, right click, shade, smooth. Boom, boy, slick. Now, we need to put some life into this guy, alright? Get in that shading tab and start adding some materials. Let's do that by selecting the eyes, alright? And under the shader tab, in the properties panel, rename it so that you know that it's the eyeball. On the principled shader, I'll change the base color to black and add a glossy look by playing with the specular and roughness settings. Now look at him. There is nothing going on behind those eyes. Sources, I saw them. Use the same material on the other eye by selecting it, and then instead of redoing everything, just go down to that drop down menu and replace that material. Same concept applies to the tongue and the head, but since the head has like two colors with the neck being a lighter green, we're gonna texture paint that later. So let's choose the main color and duplicate it by pressing Shift D. Change that color to a yellow green. And then now you gotta make these guys mingle. So you gotta add a mix shader. Do that by pressing Shift A, type in mix shader, pop up, you got it. And then you put that between the output and the principled shade. Plug the main color at the top, the yellow green at the bottom. Now add an image texture node by pressing Shift A and typing in image texture. Now you plug that image texture to the factory input on the mix shader. Let's get this guy ready for texture paint. To do that, let's go to edit mode by pressing tab. Now you see everything. Now you see wireframes. That's sick. Now you're gonna want to alt click that middle edge that splits the mesh right down in the middle. Right click and mark that as a crease. Now press A to select everything and all that exists here. And then navigate to the UV tab at the top and select unwrap. Navigate to the texture paint tab and add a texture by clicking on the plus button under the texture slots. On the left side of the viewport window, we can select the mask brush. To enable the mask, press N to open the settings panel on the right if you don't have it open already. And navigate to the stencil dropdown and add a new image. Make sure your brush opacity is at 100 and then start painting. You can also enable symmetry here. You can adjust your brush settings, fall off, whatever you need. But you can also just press F or Shift F for your fall off and size. Once I'm done, I'll navigate back to the shader tab and change the image texture to the mask image that we made. Back on the layout tab, if you're still in edit mode, get out of there. Go back to object mode, organize all of the things that we just put in here, rename them, put them in their own folders, keep it tidy. Let's give this guy some headphones. First, I'll create its own folder, and then I'm gonna add a cylinder and an empty by pressing Shift A. Now I'll scale the cylinder on the X axis by pressing S and then X and then scaling it down. Now add a mirror modifier to the cylinder and use the empty as the mirror object. Now press tab and go to edit mode, and then I'm gonna add more edge loop by pressing Ctrl R and left clicking to accept the placement. I'm selecting the faces of the object and then pressing I to inset them or E to extrude them. There's some extrude settings on the left that I used, like extrude along normals. After I'm satisfied with the parts that goes over the ear, I can add the cube or the headband while still in edit mode. Same deal here, we're gonna extrude it and then put it wherever we need it. But to make this easier, let's click on the Y-axis on the top right so that I'm in the front face mode. Or you could also press tilde and then go to front. Select the top face of the cube and then hover your mouse to wherever you need to extrude it, and then press Ctrl Shift right click to extrude it to where your mouse is. We'll fix that later. Once I've got the basic shape down, I'm going to add a subdivision modifier to make it look a little bit more detailed. At the points where I want sharper edges, I'll add another edge loop with Control R and place it near the edge I want. I'll apply the mirror modifier and connect these two meshes by selecting 4 vertices, pressing F to fill to make a full face. Just select the faces that you want and hold Alt left click to select the loop. Change the base color and assign that material to the selection. Do the same for all the other parts that you want to apply a different material to. Now, in the example I showed, the frogs are falling. It's raining them boys. I'm going to make a simpler version of the main mesh. So I'll duplicate the main collection by selecting it, right clicking, and selecting duplicate collection. I'll rename it to keep myself from getting confused. I'll select all of the objects in that collection and press J to join them all. I'll add a decimate modifier and set it to 0.5 to have the faces on it. I'll apply it by pressing the drop down arrow at the top of the tab. Boom. Now there's less stuff using my memory. Now I can add a plane, Shift A, plane, obviously. Shift A mesh plane. If you want to get a little fancy with it, I'm going to move that plane above the model and then add a particle system and set the simplified mesh as the particles under the render tab. I'll enable the rotation and change the scale under the render tab too. You have to reset your timeline back to the first frame to see the changes until we bake this entire animation. I'll adjust the number and bump that up to 5,000, but you can choose however many looks good to you. Once it's all good, you press bake. I'm going to delete all of the location and rotation information on the camera so that it resets its position. After that, I'm going to move it to where I want it to be, right in front of the particle system. For the backdrop, I'll add a cube, delete all of the faces except the back and the bottom face. Select the edges and press B to bevel it. You can use the scroll wheel to increase or decrease the amount. I'll position the main model with the headphones in the middle and rotate it a little bit. Now there's 2 ways to light this. I personally use a plugin called Physical Starlight and Atmosphere, but for beginners, it's good to know how to use the ones that come with Blender. Add a light by pressing Shift A, Lights, select Sun, and then adjust the strength and color. I'll rotate it so that the light is coming from the left and enabling ambient occlusion and bloom on the render tab. For extra detail, you can also use an HDRI and use that on your world shader. If you go to the shading tab at the top left, it'll say object, click that, switch to world, and then you can actually just drag and drop it into the shading tab. Plug that into the color in the background node, and then you'll be using it. You're good. Some final touches. I wanted to add some foreground models, so instead of just straight up duplicating the model and running my PC to the ground, I'm gonna right click and create an instance from the collection. This is basically just a copy. If you move the main collection, all of the instances that you've made will move with it too. So just keep that in mind. I'll add one of them to each corner and rotate them to my liking. Once I'm good, I'm gonna hit F12 to render the scene. You can do a lot of post-processing in the compositing tab, but if you just want to download it, you can go save as and then save image, and then you can just do your post-processing in Photoshop. That'd be great too. I did mine in Blender. Here's a quick rundown of how I did the compositing. So I just put a brightness and contrast, plug that into RGB curves, plug that into exposure, and then plug that into mix. And then I just added the glare, right? Without all of the other CCs, and then mix that in. Now we've got a sick wallpaper for a frog. Thank you, Froggy, for letting me make you one. You're the best. Mwah. Check him out on his socials. Okay, thank you, bye.